Greetings to all the students. Our previous lecture was about respiration, and today we are moving to a bit further details about human respiratory system. What are the different parts of the human respiratory system? What are the functions of different parts, etc., etc. Okay, so let's start with human respiratory system. Let's see how it looks like. This is our respiratory system. So it starts with our nose. Okay, it starts with our nose. So let me change the color, then it will become more obvious to you. See, this is our nose. When we breathe in, the air goes through our nose and it reaches exactly to this point, which is our throat. In biology, the biological name of throat is pharynx. And then it goes right in our larynx. You can see here it is written larynx. See, larynx. It's our voice box. It produces sound. And the air is passing inside this tube, this pipe. What is this tube or pipe? Trachea. You can also call it a windpipe. In our chest, it divides into two branches. What these branches are called? Bronchus. Right bronchus and left bronchus. The bronchus then further divide into tiny branches. So you can see there are tiny branches, just like a tree. The main stem, the branches, and the fine branches. So you can see all these tiny branches. Here also, these tiny branches. All these tiny branches, what they are called? These tiny branches are called bronchioles. So these tiny branches are called bronchioles. So what does it mean? The air is finally coming up to our tiny bronchioles. Okay, passing all the way through our nasal cavity, trachea, bronchus, and then finally the air has reached up to this. What are the things after that? After that, we have got something. We have got tiny bubble-like structure. Okay, we have got tiny bubble-like structure. How? See, in this way. Each and every tiny bronchiole open is in a small bubble-like air cavity. They are called alveoli. Singular is the alveolus. So these tiny air cavities, there are 350 million of alveoli in each lung. Here also. See, I'm making all these alveoli so that it will become clear to you. So these are the alveoli. I'm drawing only few of them, but there are far more alveoli in each lung, approximately more than 300 million, you can say. And these alveoli are making our lungs spongy. Okay, so these are our lungs, you can see. What are actually lungs? Lungs are nothing but a collection of bronchioles, alveoli, blood vessels, soft tissues, and they make these two pink color organs, left and right lung. Okay. So the air finally reaches and fills up in all these tiny alveoli. So when all these tiny alveoli are full of air, the lungs expand, the lungs inflate like a balloon. And then you can see one more thing here. What is this thing? This thing. This thing is called diaphragm. Diaphragm is a partition. This diaphragm is a partition in between our chest and our abdomen. So in between chest and abdomen, there is a partition, and this partition is called diaphragm. Okay, so let me erase all these things, and you should know the labeling. In the exam, it can come to label certain parts of the respiratory system. Okay, now let's move to the next part. So let me erase this bronchus and bronchioles, which I have written. So let's move to the next slide. So what is the next slide? different parts of the respiratory system. What are the different parts of the respiratory system? Okay. Nasal cavity, larynx or voice box, trachea or windpipe. Trachea divides into two bronchus. Bronchus finally divide into uh, tiny bronchioles. Bronchioles end up in alveoli, and bronchus, bronchiole, alveoli, all of them are making up our lungs. All right. So now move to the next slide. Let's see what we have. Nasal cavity, our nose. The space inside the nose is very important. What is the function? It purifies the air. Without nasal cavity, the air, the polluted air with all the germs and the dust particles will, if it reaches to our lungs, we will become sick. We will have infection. And this is how we get infections. Okay. See, inside the nose, the floor of the nasal cavity is made up of these type of the cells. What these cells are? Some of the cells you can see on the top of them are hairy structure. These hairy structure are called cilia, and these cells are called ciliated cells. Then there are some cells which do not have hairy structure. They are called goblet cells. So what these goblet cells do, these goblet cells produces mucus. Okay, these goblet cells, this one, and then again there will be another goblet cell here. So they will produce a liquid which is called mucus. Where is mucus? This yellow color thing which you are seeing. You must have noticed one thing, that our nose is always wet from inside. Why it is wet from inside? Because these goblet cells are producing mucus. Okay. So what is the function of these ciliated cells on the floor of our nasal cavity and the goblet cells? The purpose of these cells, specialized cells, is when you are breathing in, when the air is going through your nose like this, then actually the air is passing through this area. So whatever the dust are there, germs are there, you can see these are the germs. They will stick with the mucus and they cannot get inside your lungs. And when they will stick with with the mucus, and so many dust particles will be, these are the dust particles. The dust particles are all, trapped by the mucus. See, these are the dust particles. Now, what these cilia will do, these hair-like structures will do, they will move left and right, left and right. You are breathing in, they are going in. You are breathing out, they are coming out. So actually what these cilia are doing, the cilia are actually sweeping your nasal cavity. The empty space inside the nose is being swept away by the this cilia. So where the cilia is going to push them, the cilia is going to push the mucus, the germs, the dust, everything to our throat. Okay, where? See, here. The purification is taking place here. This nasal cavity, the nasal cavity here, this nasal cavity, this side, we have got the ciliated cells and the goblet cells. And you can see this space is filled up with the, it's liquid, it's not filled up, just it's wet from inside. So the germs and the dust are trapped over here, and the cilia are moving left and right and pushing everything in your pharynx or throat, from where we will swallow them. So where it will go, instead of going to your windpipe, they will go to your food pipe, to your stomach. In our stomach, there is hydrochloric acid, so the germs will be killed, and the rest of the things will be excreted out. So only the clean, warm, and wet air gets inside our nasal cavity to our lungs. This trachea, even this trachea, okay, in the whole trachea from inside, the bronchus, the bronchioles, all of them are wet. And the trachea also has got ciliated cell. So the cilia are moving up and down and pushing all the dust and the germs upward in the throat where they are swallowed. All right. So this is how the purification of air is taking place, and the air which is reaching to your lungs, to your bronchioles, to your alveolus. More or less, the air is clean, warm, and wet. Clean because the purification has done, wet because of the mucus, warm because of your body temperature, and this is the ideal air for breathing. The same thing is written on this slide. You will pause the video and you will read whatever the things are written here. It will be helpful for you to make your notes and write the answers. All right, now see, the next part is our larynx. Okay, so where is larynx? Let's see. Nasal cavity. Okay, nasal cavity. This is the nasal cavity. This is the throat. And this part is our larynx. See, this part is our larynx. So what is larynx? Voice box. It produces sound when you talk because it is surrounded by the membranes, loose folds of membrane. Okay, and these membrane, this is the larynx. If you can see here in this diagram, this cup-like structure is larynx, and it is made up of cartilage. Okay, see, it is made up of cartilage, soft bone, not a hard bone, and it is surrounded by the muscle. It is surrounded by muscles and loose folds of membranes. So when you are talking, touch your throat, you will feel the vibration. So they vibrate, the muscles and the loose folds of membrane, they vibrate and they produce sound. Okay. So the function of the voice box or larynx is to make sound when you are talking. Trachea. What is trachea? This is trachea. See, again. Okay. So this part is our voice box or larynx, and this part is our trachea. And you can see the trachea are made up of these ring-like structures. And these ring-like structures are actually made up of cartilage, the soft bone. And the purpose of these rings, why it is not a smooth pipe, why it is made up of rings, so that it can remain widely open all the time. It may not, uh, compressed due to the pressure of air. So it remains widely open so that we can breathe freely. So the entire, this trachea from inside here, there is a layer of mucus. There is a layer of mucus. So there is a layer of mucus inside the whole trachea and the bronchus, plus there are tiny cilia as well. Sorry, there are tiny cilia. Okay. So the purification process is even taking place here. If any dust or germs stick over here, your cilia will push them upward and bring them in the throat, and you will swallow them, and they will reach to your stomach, and then they will not going to harm your lungs. Okay. All right. So the next part is bronchus and bronchioles. So this thing, trachea, voice box. Okay. Voice box, trachea. Trachea will divide into two bronchus, and then the bronchus will divide finally into fine branches called bronchioles. So these are all the actually air passages. The air is passing all the way from your voice box, trachea, bronchus, bronchioles, and then at the end we have tiny alveoli. At the end of the bronchioles, we have got alveoli. So the air is going to be filled up in these alveoli, which I have showed you earlier. So I hope this much is clear to all of you. Okay, alveoli. What is alveoli? Now first see the picture of alveoli. They are very tiny, very tiny. And if we magnify the picture, they are, see, balloon-like structures. And how densely, how many blood vessels are there around them? A dense network of blood vessels. The red color ones which you are seeing, they are actually taking the oxygenated blood away from the lungs, from the alveoli. And the blue color ones which you are seeing, these are actually the tiny veins which are bringing the deoxygenated blood. So what happens? Deoxygenated blood comes to the alveoli, carbon dioxide and water molecules are given to the alveoli, and you exhale it out. and the blood picks up the oxygen, and via these red color blood vessels, which are arteries, this oxygen will be taken away. So what happens in the alveoli? Gaseous exchange takes place in the alveoli. Okay. So gaseous exchange is actually taking place in the alveoli. What are the adaptations of the alveolus? Singular is alveolus, plural is alveoli. So what are the adaptations of the alveolus? What are the special features for which they are well suited for the gaseous exchange? They have a very large surface area because they are too small. So the smaller things have a very large surface area. And if the surface area is large, the diffusion becomes faster. So quickly oxygen goes from alveoli to the blood. Carbon dioxide comes from blood to the alveoli, made up of one cell thin lining. So you can see this lining, the surface, the outer surface. Let me show you. Let me draw. This outer wall is extremely thin. This outer wall is so thin that from here easily oxygen can pass through, carbon dioxide can pass through. So it is made up of one celled thin lining. It has a very large surface area, okay, and it has a wet inner surface lining. The inner side of the alveolus is wet so that oxygen can dissolve in it and oxygen can diffuse in the blood in the liquid form. Remember, our blood is a liquid and everything in the blood should be circulated in the liquid form. Oxygen is a gas. So first of all, inside the alveolus, this is one of the alveoli. Let me show you inside the alveolus, this whole inner surface, the one which I'm drawing. You can see the whole inner surface is wet. There is a thin layer of water. So from here, oxygen from here first diffuses, first dissolves itself in the water lining, becomes liquid. Crosses this one cell. See this lining is one cell thin, made up of only one cell. So easily oxygen can cross it and oxygen can enter inside the blood vessel. And in the blood vessels, what we have? We have red blood cells. And we all know the red blood cells are red in color because they have got something in them. And what is that something? Hemoglobin, a red color substance. So this hemoglobin absorbs quickly, the oxygen comes in the blood and hemoglobin picks up this oxygen. And the oxygenated blood, then the blood which is coming to the alveolus, it is deoxygenated. Here oxygen is taken. And now the blood which is going out, it is now oxygenated blood. So deoxygenated blood, oxygenated blood. Deoxygenated blood is coming, picking oxygen and going away as an oxygenated blood. What will happen to the carbon dioxide which is there in the blood plasma? Carbon dioxide diffuses from the blood back to the alveolus and we exhale it out. We exhale it out. I hope you all have understood this idea. Okay. So this is how the gaseous exchange is taking place. So how gaseous exchange is taking place? During breathing in, air passes through the trachea, bronchus, bronchioles, and finally the air ends up in the alveolus. Lungs become inflated like balloon when all the 350, more than 300 million alveoli fills up with the air. The lungs will become inflated like a balloon. Oxygen from the air dissolves itself in the water lining and diffuses in the blood. Where is the blood? There are so many blood vessels surrounding the alveoli. So huge amount of blood is coming around the alveoli and taking away oxygen. The blood vessels around the alveoli contain deoxygenated blood. So oxygen diffuses into the alveolus. Hemoglobin grabs the oxygen and becomes oxyhemoglobin. And this oxyhemoglobin is then transported to the whole body. When it reaches to the whole body, oxygen is given to the cells and hemoglobin returns back. Okay. Carbon dioxide in the deoxygenated blood is actually not in the form of carbon dioxide gas. Then what it is in the form of? aqueous hydrogen carbonate salts. So there is an enzyme in our blood which is called carbonic anhydrase. This enzyme breaks down the hydrogen carbonate salts into water and carbon dioxide. So this water and carbon dioxide diffuses from blood to the alveolus and it is exhaled out. Simple. There is no complication in this thing. I hope you all are understanding. Okay, so now let's move to the next part. Ventilation of the lungs. What is the meaning of ventilation? How our rooms are ventilated? Air is coming in, air is going out. The room is properly ventilated. Similarly, air is coming inside our lungs and air is going outside. So our lungs are also properly ventilated. How our lungs are properly ventilated, you can see in this picture all around our lungs. You can see there is a rib cage. See, this is the rib cage all around our lungs. So it is actually protecting the lungs like this. This is the rib cage, this side also. So the rib cage is protecting our lungs, and you can see right in the middle of our chest, we have our heart. This is our heart. This is the diaphragm. This thing is diaphragm. So there is a layer of muscles outside the rib cage. How? Suppose this is the rib. This is one of the ribs. And there are layers of muscles. So there is one layer of muscle outside this rib. And there is one layer of muscle inside the rib. So the one which is outside, that is external intercostal muscles. And the one which is inside, that is internal intercostal muscles. All right. So the ribs are surrounded by externally external intercostal muscles and internally internal intercostal muscles. So what happens when you are breathing in? When you are breathing in, the external intercostal muscles, they contract and your rib cage will be pulled outward. And little bit it will be lifted upward. How? When you are breathing in, your lungs have to expand a lot. So lots of space has to be created inside. So how this space will be created in this diaphragm will become, diaphragm contract and it will become straight. So you can see top to bottom the space is created. Top to bottom the space is created because the diaphragm muscles have become straight. So top to bottom the space is created. External intercostal muscles contract and the rib cage is pulled not only outward but slightly upward as well. You can take a deep breath and you can see your rib cage is coming out. Why? Space has to be created so that your lungs can fully expand. No matter how much you breathe deeply, your lungs are never going to touch your rib cage. Why? Because the more you will breathe deeply, the more your rib cage will be going outside, and your external intercostal muscles will actually pull the rib cage outward. Okay. And same time, what happens when the time of breathing in comes? The pressure of the air outside your body in the atmosphere is more, and inside the lungs the pressure of the air is less. So in this way, when you are breathing in, the air will be rushing inside like this to your lungs, and your lungs will fully expand. The rib cage is moving outward and upward. The diaphragm is becoming flatter. Make it opposite. Your lungs are now full of air. Now oxygen from here going to the blood, carbon dioxide from here coming back to the lungs. Now the time has come when you have to throw this air out. How it will be possible? Your lungs need a little bit push so that they can throw the air out. How this push will come this time? The internal intercostal muscles. This is the rib, okay? And this is the internal intercostal muscle. Now your internal intercostal muscles contract and your diaphragm will relax and it will come back to the original curved shape. So from here the push is coming and that the rib cage is moving inward. So from here the push is coming. And inside your lungs, the air pressure has increased a lot because they are full of air. So air easily rushes out. Just by a slight push of your ribs, the air is rushing out. And this process is taking place so smoothly that you do not have an idea how it is taking place. I hope you will understand this thing and you can read the notes of breathing in and breathing, ventilation of the lungs. Okay, how ventilation of the lungs taking place. So you can see this thing, breathing in and breathing out process. So this is breathing in, and then in the later slides, you will get breathing out. This is breathing out. Respiratory diseases due to smoking. Okay, so passive smokers and active smokers, those who are directly smoking or those who are inhaling the smoke, this applies for all of them. Bronchitis is one of the diseases in which you remember I showed you the cilia, okay, in the nose. This cilia, these hair-like structures, these hair-like structures, cilia, they will damage. The cigarette smoke is going to damage them. So when they will be damaged, the dust particles, the germs, everything will be going inside your lungs. There is nothing to stop them because these cilia were sweeping everything in your throat and you were swallowing them. But now everything is going straight away inside your lungs. So what will happen? Your lungs will, your body will respond. When anything unusual happens to our body has its own way of responding to bring the situations back to the normal. So how the body is going to respond? More mucus start producing in our respiratory tract. Which respiratory tract? This respiratory tract. In our trachea, in our bronchioles, more mucus will be produced. So when more mucus will be produced, why it is produced? So that the dust and the germs can be trapped here. They may not go inside the lungs. So they start producing mucus and that causes congestion on the lungs. As if a person has got cold, but it is actually not cold. The smoker will keep on coughing and coughing and coughing to take the cough out. That is called smoker's cough. Okay, emphysema. What is emphysema? In emphysema, these tiny bronchioles, sorry, these tiny alveolus, I showed you. Let me show you the picture. These alveoli, you can see there are tiny ball-like things, tiny ball-like structures. Okay, let me show you. This is one ball. This is another ball. This is another one. So there are so many tiny ball-like structures. So their surface is actually little bit curved like this. Each ball, each alveoli has a curved surface like this. So they damage and the curved thing becomes like this. What does it mean? The surface area has decreased. And when the surface area has decreased, it takes time for the oxygen to go to the blood. So oxygen is not reaching properly on time to your blood. So breathing problem, the person will have problem in breathing, panting, that type of the people having emphysema cannot participate in any, physical activity because they have deficiency of oxygen. So they start panting, they run short of breath. Okay, lung cancer. Cigarette smoke contains a black sticky thing called tar. So the lungs of these smokers become black from inside because the tar gets deposited over there. And the tar contain chemicals which cause cancer. This can be lung cancer, mouth cancer, or the cancer of any other part of the body can be aggravated because of the smoking. Okay, so the smoking cause smoking is one of the cause of the of the cancer. Heart diseases. Okay, so what happens? Cigarette smoke contains nicotine, and this is the addictive drug. This is actually the nicotine for which the people feel like smoking on and on. This is actually the nicotine, so it thickens the blood, and if there are blood clots in our heart vessels, then naturally they will lead to the heart attacks. Okay, So the heart diseases are coming in the coming chapters of blood circulatory system. That time we will discuss these things, the heart diseases more in more detail. So I hope children you all have understood. No problem in understanding. So that's all for today. See you in the next class with a new topic.